Good afternoon and welcome to the Eastside Recovery Hub Financial Webinar Series hosted by One Redmond. My name is Christina Hudson and I'm the Executive Director and I will be your moderator for today. We know that there are many small businesses that are looking for a pathway to recovery, and financial resources is a critical element to that process. All our Eastside cities and chambers are partnered together to give the highest level of support to our local business community. Before we begin, I want to cover a few housekeeping notes. If you need technical help during the webinar, please use the chat box. We have staff on hand to try and help with any issues that you might be experiencing. We also have links to pertinent documents in the chat box that you will be able to access. The tools we have here will also be available on our website, which is eastsiderecoveryhub.com. If you have questions for the speakers, please use the Q&A box. We will do our very best to get these questions answered by our speakers. Since we have hundreds of people on this webinar, we know we won't be able to get to everyone's question during this hour. If we don't get to your question, don't worry. Our staff will go through all the unanswered questions after the program and work to get answers out as soon as we can. I want to also note that this webinar is also being recorded. We will send a link out as soon as it's ready. We know that many of you are seeking guidance and hope to help you navigate through all the information as we know it today. However, it is still a dynamic process. In fact, we had to restructure our agenda and add a speaker based on new information that was released this morning. So as of right now, all the content you will hear on this webinar is accurate. So we'll go ahead and get going with our program. Today we are covering the programs available to independent contractors, self-employed artists, and gig workers. This will include information on the SBA Paycheck Protection Program and unemployment benefits. Today we have Mark Costello, Scott Michael, Steve Burke, and Janie Sacco here with us today. First up, we will have Mark Costello, Deputy Director for the Small Business Administration at the Seattle District Office. And next, we will have Scott Michael, Legal Services Coordination Manager for Washington Employment Security Department. And to help answer the Q&A, we also have Steve Burke, Western Washington Regional Manager for the Washington Small Business Development Center, and Janie Sacco, a local financial advisor and 30-year veteran in SBA lending. And now I would like to introduce Mark Costello, Deputy District Director for the Small Business Administration, Seattle District Office. Mark.
Hey, thanks very much, Christina. I appreciate the opportunity to connect again with some of your membership here and talk about kind of what's happening with SBA and what we've been trying to do as far as making funding programs available to small businesses that are being impacted by the kind of current economic disruption that everybody's dealing with. So at a very high level, I just wanted to talk briefly about the Paycheck Protection Program and the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. And before I go into really much detail, I need to preface my comments by letting people know that due to the unprecedented demand for the programs and the funding that supported them, the current situation is that we have had what we call a lapse in appropriation. And what that means is that the money that was carved out of the CARES Act, which was $349 billion for the Paycheck Protection Program, $10 billion for the quick cash advance under the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, and the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program itself are currently unavailable for new applications. I know that's not what people want to hear, particularly those that have yet to maybe pursue one of these options, but think that they might be a good fit for them. So I just want to say that again, kind of high level, And this is nothing that you wouldn't find on the news right now out there in print media and so on. That there is an effort underway legislatively to provide additional funding for the Paycheck Protection Program. I'm not quite sure what the intent is with respect to the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. What I understand is that the Congress is looking at new funding for the Paycheck Protection Program up to $250 billion additional dollars. So about 350 was initially allocated for that program, and it was utilized and committed within a pretty abbreviated period of time. I think at one point we were had a burn rate on that program of about $2 billion an hour. So there's obviously significant demand and need for the program. I know that the SBA administrator, as well as the Secretary of Commerce, of Treasury, Stephen Mnuchin, have urged Congress to authorize additional funding for these programs. I think at just a basic level, our hope is that will happen in such a way as to not create a major delay in the implementation of this program. So having said that, maybe it would make the most sense to just talk a little bit about the Paycheck Protection Program, and with the kind of on a hypothetical level, assuming that there would be additional funding, and assuming that the funding is framed in the same way as the previous legislation made it available. This Paycheck Protection Program essentially is a vehicle that SBA was implementing to support payroll needs of small businesses during this time of economic interruption. Specifically, the idea is that loan applicants are able to make application for a Paycheck Protection Program loan to a wide array of lending institutions that are participating with SBA in partnership to make these loans available. And so what that ultimately has been looking like is that loan applicants, especially in the current environment, are making applications to the lender of their choice online, submitting that application to the lender. The lender is reviewing the documentation submitted or the application data for sufficiency, and ultimately the lender is submitting a request to SBA for a guarantee. SBA is guaranteeing these loans 100%, and what is ultimately intended is that, as I mentioned, the program is really designed to support payroll needs. And as such, there's a requirement that will trigger what is a really positive feature of the program. And the requirement is that at least 75% of the loan proceeds need to be used for payroll or payroll-related purposes. And if that does happen, then the loan applicant stands to have the debt forgiven. So in other words, if a business, let's say, received a $100,000 payroll protection program loan, at least 75,000 of that would need to be used for payroll purposes. The calculations behind the program are based on average payroll over typically 2019, although it could be brought forward to more recent months. And then that figure is multiplied by 2.5. So as an easy example, somebody who has a $100,000 average payroll would be entitled to up to a $250,000 payroll protection program loan. And then they would be required to spend at least 75% of that money over 8 weeks on payroll or payroll related costs. If they're able to document that that in fact did happen with their lender, then they will be able to have that debt forgiven. And ultimately, SBA will pay the lender back. So I would say that since we're talking today a little bit about contractors and gig workers, I want to point out that, again, this is hypothetical because the program currently is sort of in a holding pattern. But hypothetically, the payroll protection program can be used for those kinds of businesses as well. So it isn't necessarily limited only to businesses with employees. In other words, you guys as owners, 1099 contractors or Schedule C reporting types of businesses are entitled to access this program in the same way as any other kind of business. So there are some specific guidelines that came out here just actually a couple of days ago that talk to the approach that lenders and applicants are to use in coming up with an appropriate loan amount for sole proprietorship or contract work or gig work types of situations. And as I understand it, there is essentially the idea is that you would have an opportunity to receive a Paycheck Protection Program based on line 31 of your Schedule C, as I recall, which is your net income as a sole proprietor. And if you happen to be a sole proprietor with employees, then that could also, the employees would also be taken into consideration as far as determining the appropriate loan amount. So suffice it to say that the same program that has been out there and was made available to businesses with employees is also available to those that are sole contributor types of entities. And so then the same opportunity exists to apply to the lender of your choice for this Paycheck Protection Program, provided that the program is refunded, if you will. In terms of that, as I've probably been doing quite a bit lately, I would suggest that folks maybe periodically check the status of the programs via the SBA website at sba.gov/coronavirus. And in doing that, with a couple of clicks, you're going to be right on the page that will provide information about the status of both the Paycheck Protection Program and the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. And currently, it indicates the pages indicate that the programs have a lapse in appropriations. Again, hopefully that's something that is going to be changing in the very near future. I wanted to say, just for those people in the audience that might have already put in an application for a Paycheck Protection Program loan and received an indication of approval, this situation will not affect the lender's ability to fund that loan. If you have submitted an application to a lender and have not received an indication of approval, certainly get back with the lender and make sure that that is the case. If it is the case, then it's going to be ultimately dependent upon whether the program is reauthorized or refunded through the legislative process. And also for those folks that have pursued the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, which, by the way, is also available for Schedule C or contract types of businesses. if you have received notification from SBA that your application was received, they are going to continue to process those loans on a first come, first served basis. So you're in the queue, and that process is not impacted as far as what I understand. But for somebody that's looking to make application for a loan under that program at this time, the product is unavailable. Again, it's subject to the same deficiency of funding that the Paycheck Protection Program has. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys might have. I hesitate probably to go into too much more detail about either of these programs just because it's kind of speculative and hypothetical. Again, our hope, my hope, is that this funding is going to be taken care of, and that there's not going to be much of an interruption in the implementation of the program and the distribution of funds. But so with that, Cynthia, I'm happy to take any questions, or Margot, that anybody might have.
Sure. I think we are going to hold our questions for the end, but I think there was, let me see here. There was a question about whether people who are applying for the Payment Protection Program and disaster relief funding, is that something that taxi drivers and Lyft and Uber drivers can apply for?
Yeah, so they were both enacted with kind of the broadest application in mind. So people that maybe historically weren't thought of as payroll types of businesses will have an opportunity here. As I said, contract workers, I think at a probably ground level, somebody like a taxi driver, Uber driver would absolutely have the ability to receive some benefit from these programs, provided again that they are available and funded.
All right, great. We're going to go ahead and we'll take some more questions toward the end of the program. Next up, we have Scott Michael, Legal Services Coordination Manager for Washington Employment Security Department. Scott?
Hi, thank you everyone for attending this and coming to, or I guess figuratively, technologically coming to this presentation. And thank you to One Redmond for hosting this. It is my hope today to help all of the independent contractors, the self-employed, gig economy workers find out how they can access unemployment benefits and let them know about their options about going either through the regular state unemployment system and also their options for the federal pandemic unemployment assistance benefits that just became available under the CARES Act. Next slide, please. So the first thing I want everyone in the audience to understand is that while you may consider yourself an independent contractor, the businesses that you work for may consider you an independent contractor. You may have even signed a contract saying you're an independent contractor. You may actually be an employee for unemployment insurance purposes. Different state laws and different federal laws define independent contractor differently. There's different independent contractor tests depending on which government agency you're talking to, or even within the same agency, what government program or benefit you're trying to access. With state unemployment insurance, we have one of the strictest independent contractor tests. You are more likely to be considered an employee under Washington's state independent contractor test for unemployment, more than almost any other independent contractor test that you can find in the law. And we don't care within the unemployment insurance system if you signed a contract saying you're an independent contractor. It does not matter if you signed a contract waiving a right to claim unemployment insurance. That is under state law void and unenforceable. So that is one thing to consider as you're approaching this, is you're not necessarily limited to just the new federal benefits. Next slide. So one of the things that you, here's how you can figure out just on a rough level, things to think about whether or not you may be an employee. First off, if you have a contract that gives the business you work for the right to control you, this could include things like a dress code, a code of behavior. Do they give you training in order to do this? Is there designated times or that you're required to show up? Are you required to wear a uniform? Is there a name badge? Do you have some sort of tracking device tracking where you're driving to and where you're going? Do they have the right to fire you for any reason whatsoever? All of those things can give the business you are working for the right to direct and control the performances of your services. At which point, if that happens, you may actually be an employee. Under the state independent contractor test, the business you work for cannot direct and control your behavior or how you perform the services that you're being paid to perform. Also, if you perform the same kind of work that the business you work for usually does, this is also a big red flag that you may actually be an employee. In my day job, I usually do unemployment tax appeals, making sure that independent contractors and employees are correctly classified. And businesses I typically run into are like yoga studios who consider all of their yoga teachers independent contractors. Well, a yoga studio cannot exist without the yoga teachers teaching there, at which point you become part of the usual course of business. You're teaching at the studio, you're within the places of business of that business. That easily makes you an employee of that business. If you're only performing services for one business, this is an indication that you're not an independently established business. You need to be able to show, or at least the business you work for needs to be able to show that you are working for multiple businesses, have multiple clients in order to prove that you're independently established. If you don't have your own tools, if you don't have an office outside of your home office, if you haven't registered a business with the state of Washington, like the Department of Revenue, these are big red flags indicating that you may actually be an employee and not an independent contractor, despite whatever contract you may have signed. Now, something to be aware of is that there are some flat exemptions that are categorical. If you are a member of an LLC, you're considered an employer and not an employee, so therefore you cannot qualify for regular unemployment. If you're a corporate officer, you are also categorically exempt. There are also other statutory exemptions in the unemployment insurance system, such as some commissioned sales, some freelance news correspondents who are also exempt. So be aware of those. So for anybody who wants to file a claim, whether it's a regular state claim or a federal claim, the first thing you need to do is visit this website, esd.wa.gov.unemployment, read it, read it, read it. This website is going to tell you what information to have ready for you before you begin. It gives you a preview of what the questions are going to be once you start filling out your application. It's going to have some user guides, frequently asked questions for technical issues people run into as they're filing their claim. You can also sign up for free webinars where we're going to walk you through how to file an unemployment claim. So please, before you try to start to file, get on this website and read as much information as you can. Many, as you all know, our phone systems are overloaded with the number of unemployed people trying to make phone calls and file claims. But a significant chunk of those calls are people asking questions that are for information that is freely accessible on our website. So before you pick up the phone, before you go and file a claim, please just review the website. And if you can't get your question answered there, then you can go ahead and call. So for the best and fastest service, apply online using e-services. And as independent contractors and gig workers, one of the things you're going to need to do before you start the process is you need to get some records together showing money earned and hours worked for the past 15 months. All right, next slide, please. All right, so for those of you who may have already filed a claim and applied, you may have gotten a letter that looks exactly like this. It tells you that you are eligible to receive $0 per week. You can't get any $0 total. You're totally denied. And, oh, can we go back up, please? So this is one of the first documents that you will get. It's called a monetary determination. And this is how much money you're entitled to based solely off of what employers have reported on their unemployment tax reports. That's the only basis for this. So if you have been working as an independent contractor, you've been considered to be an independent contractor by the businesses you're working for, when you go to file your claim, they haven't reported your wages and hours on their tax reports. So they're not going to show up. So when we send you this computer-generated letter that's based solely off of what has been reported for you, then you're going to get something that looks like this, where you're denied, where you get $0 in benefits. So for folks who need to access these state unemployment benefits, unfortunately, you're going to need to call us in order to let us know that, hey, I did work. Hey, I did perform services for these businesses. This is how many hours I worked, and this is how much I paid. So there's, on the letter, you will see the 800-318-6022 number, or if you are filing online, which I heavily encourage everyone to do, you can also send us a message via our e-services, and you can provide the documentation. Now, we have reached out to some of the major gig economy employers and asked them to provide us with the information about hours worked and wages paid for the majority of the people who work for them, so we can start processing these claims faster. That hasn't happened yet, but until that does happen, until the employers who hire in the gig economy report this information, the burden's going to be on you, the gig workers and the independent contractors, to provide that information to us. So once you send us this information, either online or over the phone, we're going to assign somebody to do an investigation, determine if you are exempt or not from receiving unemployment benefits, and we're going to issue you a new letter called a monetary redetermination, which which, if you are indeed a covered employee, tell you what your true weekly benefit amount is and what your entitlement is. The other thing to keep in mind is that you still need to have 680 hours worked for 4 consecutive quarters during the past 15 months. If you don't have enough hours worked, even if we eventually count you as an employee, you're still not going to qualify for a claim. For those of you pursuing federal unemployment benefits, you don't need to contact us after you receive this letter. This initial monetary determination is enough. All right, next slide, please. So for a federal unemployment claim under Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, PUA or PUA, this is the federal benefits that are there to help fill in gaps into the social safety net to catch people who don't necessarily qualify for a regular unemployment claim. So this is for the LLC members who are exempt, the true independent contractors who are exempt, folks who don't have 680 hours in their base year. So this allows, courtesy of the federal government, the state to pay you and cover you a weekly unemployment check. In order to qualify, you first have to apply for and get denied for a regular state claim. So even if you want a federal claim, you still have to apply for a state claim. It may seem unnecessarily bureaucratic, but that's what the federal government tells us we have to do. So that's what we have to do. The second criteria for qualifying is you have to, the reason you're not working has to be related in some way to COVID-19. The CARES Act sets out 11 different buckets that people can fit into. Some of the biggest ones are if your business is closed due to an order from the governor, you have a non-essential business, you can't operate it in a way that complies with the governor's stay-home orders, then you can qualify that way. If you can't work because schools are closed and you need to stay at home to take care of your children, or a daycare is closed, or if you're caring for a parent or a grandparent and their care facilities are closed and you need to take off work to take care of them, you can qualify that way. If you can't do your work due to some level of travel restrictions, such as the stay-home order, again, you would qualify. If you've been advised by a healthcare provider to self-quarantine because you've been potentially exposed to COVID-19, you could qualify. The third thing is you can't be receiving any type of paid leave. So this includes the new sick time leaves that were authorized recently under the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. This includes any sort of other paid sick leave, any other paid vacation leave, paid time off, paid family and medical leave. If you're receiving that to compensate you for the week of pay, then you are ineligible to receive pandemic unemployment assistance. So if you're receiving full pay for the week, you can't access this pandemic unemployment assistance. Also, if you're able to telework with full pay, you can't collect these unemployment benefits as well. All right, next slide, please. So for federal unemployment claims, again, you have to apply for a regular claim and get denied. So for those of you who haven't applied already, you can do so now. After this show is over, even while you're listening to me now, that's fine. Go ahead and get on our website, read the information, and file that claim. And once you get denied and we tell you that you're not eligible for any unemployment benefits, then you are potentially eligible for an unemployment claim. Also, get your income information ready. So if you have a 1099, if you're a 1099 contractor, get that ready. If you have filed your federal tax returns for the 2019 year, have that ready, because we're going to base your information off of net income. So the business's net income is going to determine how much benefits you get. It's not dependent on whether or not you pay yourself a salary through your business. It's just based off of the business's net income. And then the third thing, and this is going to be tough for people, but you're going to have to wait until we launch on April 19th, which is this Sunday. After the CARES Act passed, we've been waiting on federal guidance, and we've also been furiously reprogramming our computers so that we can launch this federal benefit. These benefits are going to be also paid retroactively to those who qualify during the weeks that these programs are available. So even though these were announced way back at the end of March, which somehow feels like a lifetime ago, you can qualify for these federal benefits retroactively. And so then we can, so we'll open things up again on Sunday. Saturday, we're going to be closed launching this. All right, next slide, please. So for those of you who are exempt from unemployment insurance, you are a true independent contractor, you are self-employed, you haven't been misclassified as an independent contractor. Here's what you can access as far as federal pandemic unemployment assistance. You get up to 39 weeks of benefits, so long as the reason for your unemployment every week continues to be related to COVID-19. It can't be because the economy is bad. So that's a clear thing to remember on, for that is that as we all hope, knock on wood, that COVID-19 and all the work that we're doing to flatten the curve will be successful, that COVID-19 will go away. And that as the summer months progress, the virus supposedly doesn't do well in warm temperatures, at least that's what CNN told me yesterday, then we'll be able to reopen the economy. But the economy may still lag. The economy may still stink and not be as healthy as it was before we went into COVID-19 crisis mode. So even though COVID-19 may not be a factor, we may still be feeling the poor economic hits that come as a result of shutting down the economy. As a result of that, these federal benefits are not going to be related to you. For example, if you're at home taking care of a kid because school's closed, well, once school goes into official summer break, that doesn't apply for you anymore. So that's something to be aware of. But if you are still able to qualify for these federal pandemic benefits, we are going to pay you your $600 bonus benefit also out of the CARES Act on top of your regular benefit amount. So whatever you regularly qualify for the 4 months of April, May, June, and July, we're going to top it off with another $600. All right, next slide. For those of you who do fight is maybe the wrong word, work with us and push to be covered as a regular employee to get covered by a regular unemployment insurance claim. Here's what is available to you. One, you get up to 26 weeks of regular unemployment benefits. That's the most weeks of regular unemployment we can pay for you. You can also get up to 13 weeks of a federal extension of unemployment benefits. So these are federally paid unemployment benefits that adds another 13 weeks onto a regular unemployment claim, another benefit courtesy of the CARES Act. As it exists under state law, if we have 3 straight months of high unemployment, which it looks like we're going to have, then we can trigger onto something called extended benefits. And as long as the unemployment rate stays high, another up to 13 weeks of extended benefits are available for you. And then after you've done your 26 weeks of regular unemployment, if you've done your 13 weeks of these federal extension benefits, if you've done another 13 weeks of these state extended benefits, and you've exhausted everything, then you can still fall back on the pandemic unemployment assistance I just talked about. The key thing about those top 3 lines right there, those are available to you even if the economy continues to be lousy. It's not contingent upon a COVID-19 nexus. You don't have to prove that the reason you're unemployed is directly tied to COVID-19. So if the economy continues to lag, you have 52 weeks of benefits potentially available to you just based off of bad economy, and you don't have to prove a COVID-19 nexus. And then for all of these weeks of benefits, we're going to top it off with $600 for the months of April, May, June, and July. For those of you who have been, again, qualified for a regular unemployment claim during the past few weeks, congratulations. We're happy to help you. We're sorry you're out of work, but we are going to retroactively top that off with the $600 once we turn on the federal programs starting this Sunday. All right. That's all right. And what I want to leave you off with is this is our website, www.esd.wa.gov. You'll see a banner there. It's our orange banner telling you how to, how things have been impacted by COVID-19, what you can do to access individual benefits. And then also I've highlighted there a hyperlink just underneath that orange banner to subscribe for email updates. This is the best way to get the most up-to-date and accurate information with regards to COVID-19. You can also be friends with us on Facebook, follow us on Facebook, or you can also follow us on Twitter at ESDWAWorks. And again, that's at ESDWAWorks. All right, and I'm excited to answer your questions. I see a whole bunch of them are coming in.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Well, thank you, Scott. We appreciate it. We are going to begin the Q&A portion of the program now. We will have Steve and Janie now join our panel of experts. And we do have a number of questions, so I'll try to mix them up as to who they are addressed to. And I think, Scott, since you are just finished giving your presentation, we have some questions about if people have been denied. So if the state denied someone before the CARES Act, should they go back and reapply, or what do you recommend?
So yes, if you have been denied before, you do need to fill out a separate application for the federal pandemic unemployment assistance. So, and that application will be available to you this Sunday.
Great. And then I'm going to circle back up to Mark. As you probably can understand, a lot of these self-employed folks and contractors are understandably upset that the Paycheck Protection Program is closed. And I know we're talking hypotheticals, but what can they do now in hopes that there would be additional funding? For example, are banks still taking application? What kind of things can they do to prepare? How can they find a bank if their bank isn't doing the PPP program? Oh, did we lose you, Mark? Or maybe Steve can jump in?
Yeah, I can, if Mark's not available. At this point in time, the word that we're getting is that most of the banks have stopped accepting applications. We did have information just yesterday that there were some online portals that had opened up for the PPP, and that included Intuit, Square, Cabbage, and PayPal, and they had all developed. I actually tried the Intuit one last night myself, and it worked until they actually cut things off by showing me an error message at the end when the funds, the appropriation had run out. They really can't accept applications until there's further legislation. So my belief is that virtually all of the banks at this point and other elements that are accepting PPP applications at this point are in fact cut off until there's further legislation. They don't want to, besides the fact that they're buried processing the applications that they do have and that they've already committed to, they don't want to set expectations that they can't meet later. Thanks, Christina.
Great, thank you, Steve. I'm going to go back to Scott. We have a number of questions for you. There's a question here from Pablo. On the unemployment website, what do we do when we cannot sign in because our social security number is linked to an existing account that you can't access? It tells us to call, but the lines are permanently busy and we cannot get through.
Unfortunately, Pablo, it ended up with the wrong speaker. I am the law and words guy and not necessarily the technical assistance guy. So I'm sorry, I cannot help you. But I did see that on our Facebook post and on our Twitter feed, our commissioner did just post a video with regards to folks who have duplicate SAW accounts or Secure Access Washington accounts. So that may be your issue. So go ahead and look there to see if that may resolve your issue. But unfortunately, I can't provide that level of technical expertise in this forum because I also don't know what to do. I'm sorry.
No, that was good. That was good for me to know what SAW meant because I know that's a question that people have been asking. So thank you for that. This is another question for Scott. How do people string multiple jobs together apply for this? Like if they're stringing multiple jobs to make ends meet, how do they collect all that data from all these different jobs to apply for unemployment?
So, yeah, I understand that, especially in the gig economy and the independent contractor space, so many people are working so many short-term jobs, sometimes successively, sometimes simultaneously. And the best that we can ask for is to do the best you can as far as providing information. Something like going through your bank records and pulling up last year's bank records to show what payments you've received. You can redact all the other checks you've gotten, but if you can show us what checks you've received, go to your bank and see if you can find the canceled checks or the direct deposit forms from the people you've worked with. That may be the best way. If the people you've been working for have given you like an IRS form 1099, you probably needed to gather those anyway to file your federal taxes. So get those together as well. But I understand that it's a tough task. We would hope that employers would correctly classify their staff and report them accurately. But this is one of the problems and the side effects with people misclassifying their staff, is that when it does come time to file these claims, the burden ends up falling on them to gather this information. We would hope they would be right there in our computers and we'd be able to turn around within a matter of days. Even now, we can still turn around in a matter of days if we have the information. But because the information isn't into us, the burden falls on you and it ends up delaying your claim. And I'm sorry about that.
So this question is for Janie, and we're talking about the lender's form. For independent contractors, how do they list themselves as a business? Do they list self? What do they put in that line item?
What I would, if they have a legal entity name, if they have a legal entity name that they're using, they would qualify as either a LLC or corporation or partnership. So that is a slightly different input data for this form. Most of you are probably compensated in your personal name, so that you would use your personal name. But certainly if you have a legal entity name, that's what you would use on the application.
Super, thank you. And let's see, we are going back to Scott. It says, I have not yet filed my 2019 tax return, but I have 1099s and W-2s for 2019. I used these documents to apply for regular unemployment, and then they said they would be denied due to lack of W-2 wages as he applied yesterday. I don't want to use my 2018 tax return because I made a lot less and I have the W-2s and the 1099 for 2019. What should I do? And the unemployment is related to COVID-19.
Okay. So one, it's okay that you earned less in 2018. We rely on the most current year's information. So we do, so we can only use the 2019 year. 2018 is too old. But yeah, so if you have been denied due to a lack of sufficient hours, because maybe you didn't have 680 hours during the last 15 months, or sorry, yeah, 15 months, then you could qualify for a pandemic unemployment assistance. So it's good that you have that information ready. And when you submit that information come Sunday, we will be able to set that up. Something I failed to mention in my initial presentation as well is that for folks who are qualifying for this pandemic unemployment assistance, we do expect a whole rush of you are coming, and the agency is getting all hands on deck, grabbing hundreds of volunteers from across the agency to help process these claims because they have to be done on a manual basis. We are so what we're going to do is, until we're able to verify the wages and hours from the tax documents that you provide, what we're doing is we're going to pay you the minimum amount that you're entitled to. And then once we're able to verify your wages, then we'll bump that up to what your actually entitlement is, and then we'll back pay you the difference as well.
Super. And another question here for Scott. For commission-only salespeople, for example, real estate brokers with their own LLC, should they apply through the Washington Employment Security Department, be denied, and then starting April 19th, apply for the federal PUA?
Yes,
and would
please.
they be potentially eligible for the 16 weeks of the $600 a week?
Yes, all of the above. Commissioned paid real estate agents are categorically exempt. If you have some non-commissioned wages, you may be able to use those to establish a state claim. But if you're commission only, real estate agents are exempted. But nonetheless, you still have to jump through the loophole of applying for a state claim, get denied, and then turn around on Sunday, file an unemployment claim with the federal pandemic unemployment assistance. So if you haven't filed your claim already, do that now, and then you'll be one step ahead of the game come Sunday.
Great, perfect. Now, this question is for Mark, if he's still on the line. do sole proprietors qualify for both Paycheck Protection Program and unemployment benefit, or just one or the other? We'll see if Mark's still on the line, and if not, we might switch it to Steve.
It does look to me like Mark has jumped off.
Okay.
Yes, sole proprietors and independent contractors, as you discussed. I see Mark's coming back in, so I may just go ahead and defer back to him if he's available. Mark, are you up for this one?
Hi guys, somehow I got kicked off and I apologize for that. So yeah, hey, what was the question?
Oh, I just moved. Sorry.
It was whether or not solopreneurs through for the EIDL and the PPP. And Mark, in answering that, if you could also address those who do, how they get their funds through those, and then if they do get paid utilizing their Schedule C and that line 31, and they do receive some funds from that, what's their eligibility then for unemployment, and how do those things work together or conflict?
Yeah, I do not know the answer as far as the relationship between unemployment and benefit from the PPP or the well, it wouldn't be the EIDL, it would be the PPP primarily. The EIDL is a loan, and the PPP obviously is more of a potentially forgivable arrangement to cover payroll. I kind of have to defer and refer folks to the employment security people at the state of Washington for that.
I can try to answer that then.
Thanks, Scott.
So for the PPP loans, if you are using PPP to continue to pay yourself a salary, you cannot claim unemployment and at the same week that you're paying yourself a PPP salary. You can't double dip that way. If you're using PPP to pay for other things like rent or utilities and not pay yourself a salary, or if you're using PPP to pay for the people who are working for you, then that is fine. You can still qualify for unemployments that way.
Right.
But you can't draw a salary and get unemployment at the same time. Also, if you're worried about affecting the eligibility of the people underneath you, again, as long as they don't get paid salary or any sort of paid leave at the same time that they're claiming unemployment, they're fine.
Right, right.
Great, thank you. Scott, we have another one for you. I am a freelance photographer and have not tracked my hours since I bill by the project. What should he do?
Do the best that you can to recreate the hours that you have worked. If you have any sort of calendar or written calendar that you have, or an electronic calendar that you've kept on Outlook, showing what your hours are. So we understand that there's a wide variety and flexibility of arrangements out there and a wide variety and flexibility of documentation. So all we can really ask you to do is to do your best to show what the hours you have are worked.
Great, I have another one for Scott. It says, what about UI under PUA for Schedule C?
Sorry, say that again.
Oh, sorry. It says, what about unemployment insurance under PUA for Schedule C?
I'm not sure I understand that question.
Okay, let me go to a new one, just one moment. Okay, here's another one. A group of taxi drivers and Lyft drivers. So the steps that they should take is first apply for regular state unemployment, and two, when they get denied, they should call Employment Security Department, or did they just jump to federal programs?
So So for folks who are taxi drivers, and there are a group of taxi drivers and other types of drivers that are covered by unemployment insurance, it would probably be best for you, at least as far as accessing the most amount of benefits with the fewest number of strings attached, to try to call us back and try to get set up with a state claim. There are some people who will apply for a federal claim, who we may end up determining after an audit that they were actually eligible for a state claim, and they actually were covered for state benefits because they thought of themselves as an independent contractor, and we may end up shifting you over to a state claim on the back end. But it will be best. I think you'll have the most access to the longest amount of benefits with the fewest strings attached if you try to set up a state claim.
And I think our last question that we have time for is for Scott, what if no tax return is filed to generate line 31 income for coverage?
So if you have no income, no business income for the past 2019 year, then you are eligible for a minimum amount of benefits for under the pandemic federal benefits. That's $235 plus the $600 on top of that. So even if your business didn't earn any money last year, you're still potentially eligible for at least a minimum amount of financial benefits on a weekly basis. If you haven't filed your tax return, though, please get that in and get that ready, because that's going to be the best and easiest way for us to verify your income and get you set up with the right amount of benefits as soon as possible.
All right, super. Thank you to all our speakers today. We appreciate your time very much. We know this situation is so dynamic, and thank you for answering these questions. I want to make sure we also thank our partners on the East Side who are working hard to support the business community during this pandemic, and also thank you to all the industry partners, our supporting partners, who are also working hard to support all of you here on this call. AIA, Artist Trust, IGDA, Seattle, Meeting Planners International, New Tech, the Washington Association of Accounting and Tax Professionals, Washington Film Works, Washington Trucking Association, and WhipSmart. Thank you all for participating on this webinar. Again, we will be sending up a follow email with a link to the recording of this webinar and links to the resources that were referenced. We should likely have the slide deck as well available for you. Next week, we will be hosting another webinar, so look out for more information on that. A quick update on the grant programs that are available. We know that the City of Kirkland's grant program has been completed. The governor's $5 million small business grant applications for King County have been closed due to the massive amount of applications that were received in the first 24 hours. We do want to make sure that you look on the Facebook site for the grants that are coming up. You can now register your email for more information. And the Facebook links, as well as key resources, weekly webinars, and additional grant opportunities are all on www.eastsiderecoveryhub.com. And I want to thank you all again, and please stay safe and healthy.